Hey, I'm back about 30 seconds later. Again, I apologize for rushing, but we don't have much time to get these up on Blackboard so you can see them. Number 10, I ask about book smarts versus street smarts. Generally, my face-to-face students like that concept a lot. Like, how do you apply what you learn in school to, like, the streets of Odessa, the streets of Midland? And seemingly, you use your street smarts to figure out the teacher, to figure out what you have to do to get a good grade, figure out your classmates, whatever. And I would ask how you use book smarts out in the real world, the mean streets of Pecos. Number 11 is Rodriguez versus Hogarth. I talked about that in detail when I went over your questions. Both are nice men trying to help students and readers. Rodriguez is subjective. It's his real autobiography. He's telling you what he experienced. Hogarth wants to help people, but he does a study on scholarship kids and writes a book. And I don't think there would have been a Rodriguez if there wasn't a Hogarth. But Rodriguez, subjective, blood real. Hogarth's kind of objective. Let me paint you a picture of a group in society. Young Rodriguez versus adult Rodriguez, I think you can probably figure that out. Young Rodriguez really wants to be a professor, connects to his teachers. Old Rodriguez is in that library in England, wants to be in his mother's kitchen. He's nostalgic, so you can debate what he's trying to do. You could maybe say he's setting himself up to be a villain for us. If he tells us, I'm ashamed of my mom, I'm ashamed of my dad, maybe some reader is too, so he's like taking the blame, being the villain, to teach us a lesson. Value of mainstream education versus cultural identity. Sometimes the class would talk about the impact of Hispanic culture on America. I generally don't talk too much about politics because people say like what their mom or their dad says. But I will ask, is Hispanic culture growing in Texas, in New Mexico, in Arizona, in California? You go to the post office, you go to DMV, the instructions are in English and Spanish. And I will jokingly ask, when are we taking Fargo, North Dakota? I personally think it's more about people in a room together, talking it up, chatting it up, working things out. It's not about politicians. It's about real people learning stuff from each other. Bookworm, lose yourself in the book is number 14. I talked about this in another video, but Rodriguez on Friday night is studying. He's not going out with his friends. He's not doing anything. Hey, Richard, let's go to the pub. Richard isn't going. He's doing his work. You could maybe write an essay that Rodriguez doesn't have any friends. He became a professor. He's rich. He's famous. But he doesn't seem like in that essay he had a good time. It doesn't seem like he had any friends. So that's something, maybe he wants us to go to school, get good grades, but not lose sight of family and friends too. Do you retain what you read for the man? Sometimes I'll see an old student 5 years later, and I'll ask him if they remember Rodriguez, and a lot of times they don't. I'll ask a trivia question when I give a paper back. Maybe it's a Matchbox car or a sticker, and sometimes they remember that sticker, like good feelings, the bonding, more than what we read. I will also ask what a student in the Southwest studied in school. Was it Shakespeare, Hemingway, Faulkner? Was it an old dead white guy? Or did you study Gloria Anzaldúa, Richard Rodriguez? And it seems to me if we're in the Southwest, it should be like a better mixture. So I'll ask the students if they think there's anything wrong in 2020 continuing in English class to study like dead white guys. That kind of connects to 100 Greatest Books as elitist. 17 is the end of education. I talked about that in your essay video. Are you here to get an A, to be done with English, capitalism, product? Or are you here to learn something, find your voice, make friends, process? And even though it might seem like it's product, get that A, the fact that you're in college and I'm in college, maybe we want to learn something too. Is it okay to psychoanalyze, objectify your parents' hometown culture? We talked about that as well. Maybe think about my mom heckling me in the bathroom. But again, if it's Christmas and I'm mad at my mom for calling me Haystacks Calhoun, Two-Ton Tony, instead of yelling at her, I picture her as like a character in a book, as a poor girl in a book, and hopefully I don't get mad and yell back at my mom, like make fun of her teeth or something. Yeah, she really does call me like Two-Ton Tony. Zones of cultural contact, number 19, connects to another essay in the book, but you go to school, you meet new people, experience new things, and it's positive. It impacts who you are and what you believe. Rodriguez's story is subjective and real. I do think he's telling the truth. I think he's like warts and all telling us his real deal story. And again, me as a hillbilly in Virginia, the first time I read this in graduate school at Virginia Tech, like I could connect. Even though he was Hispanic and older, like I connected very well to what he said. Did Rodriguez have a choice? That's debatable. Again, he made it. He's a professor. He's on TV all the time. He's rich and famous and successful. Could he have, stayed in his hometown, worked in a factory? Would that have been okay? Did he have to like cut off his parents, his community to be who he became? Rodriguez's exception that proves the rule, process over product. I talked about that a couple of minutes ago. Ideally, the older you get, you learn stuff from everyone. You find your voice. It's not about getting paid every time. That might be different in the Permian Basin than other places, but maybe that's debatable as well. And maybe the main concept that connects Rodriguez certainly to Anzaldúa is like where American culture comes together with Mexican culture. And we're on like a borderline. When we get to Anzaldúa, the editors of my textbook, Ways of Reading, says where the two cultures scrape together is kind of bloody and ugly and it's rough country. But maybe if you lived in Clinton, Iowa, where everyone's the same kind of generic, if you came down to Odessa, Texas, the food, the music, the culture is more interesting. And again, Rodriguez, don't forget it's the 1980s as well. It's not 2020. 1985, picture your grandfather telling your cousin, lose your accent, act like the Americans, that's how you succeed. And then compare that when we get to Anzaldúa with what she would tell her granddaughter, be proud of yourself as a woman, your voice, Spanglish, whatever. So anyway, that was fairly quick, and I'm rushing, but I hope this helps when you start writing your papers. Okay, bye.